is crackling, everybody? Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by Number Fire. That is right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and NumberFire.com, as we are getting you set for the Genesis Invitational with PGA DFS coming at you this weekend. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for NumberFire.com. Joined here, as always, by Brandon Gadula. He is the managing editor for NumberFire. Brandon, it's basically a major level field for this weekend. A lot of huge names here, and we've got big names all the way across the salary pool for this weekend. So easily the biggest field we've had probably since like September or I guess August. How you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good, and it's probably a little tougher than some majors where there's not that the bottom rung golfers who are in on for whatever reason, depending on the major. But this is an amazing field. It's going to be really, really good, and we have so many studs that it almost feels like we're going to have to fade some of the best players so that we can fit in more of the. Okay, I'm wrong in that, apparently. Yeah, Jim's shaking his head.
No.
So what Jim's trying to say is play Rory and then play Luke List to balance it out. And that's the way to go. Those
are two of your studs. You could probably get a third in there if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But yeah, to back up your point about the depth of the field, Ryan Armour is minimum salary. He's 420 to 1. And Ryan Armour is not a great golfer, but he's not a dud. He's not a total waste. Kyle Stanley is $7,100. HV3 is $72. Russell Henley is $73. The son of Bob, Kevin Tway, $7,400. Might be in my player picks. There is some legit depth in this field. And by legit, I mean disgusting depth. But you also got Rory, JT, John Rahm, Dustin Johnson. Tiger Woods is here. Brooks freaking Koepka was the 6th dude I listed. How wild is this field? I think that you got a lot of studs, and it's going to make it hard to narrow the list down, and there is some incentive maybe to go a bit more balanced, but also I don't really want to pass up Rory.
Yep.
So
I'm having that trouble because I simulate out the events and just get an idea of win equity and cut odds. And when I try to optimize a lineup based on I just want to see what the best route is to maximize your cut odds, it's very balanced. And even though the math says that, I'm probably going to fade the math because I'm smarter than math. And I'm definitely just going to play.
Math is bad. Math is bad. I think that if we're going to have one takeaway from this, it's that Brandon thinks math is bad.
Yes.
And you should fade all math. I think that is the optimal route. I agree, just because I just want to get all these studs in. I think there is a lot of weights to being balanced in a sense where you get one stud and then go maybe a bit more balanced, because that could involve Tony Finau, Adam Scott, those guys could work with that build. But you're gonna have a hard time talking me out of shoveling Rory into a lot of lineups. But it's going to be, there are a lot of guys who could win this event. I think that we should at least account for that when building lineups, for sure.
Yeah. A lot of guys who can win.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, just a lot of guys who can win. And I guess maybe the real takeaway is that we don't know everything, and it's just best to kind of let ownership dictate things.
No, we do know everything. That's false. I don't know why you would insinuate that. Big week this week for the Heat Check. We have this podcast, obviously, because you are already listening to it, whether it be on the Number Fire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed or over on YouTube. We also have, of course, XFL week number 2. That's coming up on Thursday, 10 a.m. live on YouTube if you want to watch there. 2 NASCAR podcasts this week, neither of which will be live on YouTube, but you can find those by subscribing to the Number Fire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. I'll have one for the Blue Green Vacations Duels at Daytona, likely today. It depends on how I feel later today. We'll see. But it could be this afternoon, could be tomorrow. We'll see. I don't know. No rules, no limits. And then The Daytona 500 podcast will be coming up on Friday. That one will be Friday. So we have the starting order from the duels on Thursday. So to get all 4 Heat Check podcasts this week, make sure you are subscribed to the Number Fire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. You can also get the Daily ISO with Tom Vecchio for NBA DFS every weekday. If you're listening to Apple Podcasts, please leave a rating and review as well, because those do help us out quite a bit. Are you ready to break down the Genesis Invitational, Brandon?
Yes.
Let's do it then. This used to be an open. This is the first year it's an invitational, which is why it's a super, super loaded field. It also does trim the field to 120 golfers, which means a larger percentage of the field to make the cut. About time. It's still the same cut rules as usual, where it's the top 65 plus ties after the first 2 rounds, but a higher percentage will make the field, and I will happily welcome that. We're at Riviera Country Club. It is 7,322 yards. It is a par 71. Brandon, which stats have stood out in the past at Riviera Country Club?
So Riviera is a course that emphasizes distance more than accuracy, also places a bit more of an emphasis on around the green play than what you typically see from a PGA Tour course. According to FantasyNational.com, the greens and regulation rate's around 58% compared to the average of 66%. So really what I take away from this is it's a good all-around test that, you'll probably hear the comparison to Augusta National quite a bit this week. And then back when the Masters comes back up, you'll get the Riviera comps. But I kind of think that it's not the worst week just to fixate on the best tee to green golfers, which always sounds like it should be the case, but it's not. But this week, I think it matters. My key stats this week are going to be strokes gained approach number 1, strokes gained off the tee, weighted a little bit less than approach, par 5 scoring, driving distance, and strokes gained around the green. I really want it all. I want distance, so I'm going to be pretty particular with my golfers this week.
And I think that the distance angle is kind of what pushes me towards being a little bit more top heavy, because if you look at the guys who are going to gain the most there, it is largely the guys who are at the top end. Rory, DJ, Brooks, if he wants to try. Cantlay's pretty solid there too. I'm not in on Bubba, but he does a distance and he's more at the top end. And you don't get that quite as much with the more mid-range golfers. So I think that just by prioritizing distance, I'm naturally going to wind up being a little bit more with a 2-stud approach. You can dip down to like Xander and Tony Finau, and they fit that too. But like, if I want to just sell out for distance, that does nudge me a bit more towards going a bit more top heavy. Do you agree with that overall sentiment?
To go more top heavy?
In order to get more distance?
Yeah, I mean, if your sole priority is to get distance, then yes. But again, I'm going to struggle with this because I think the optimal play is to bounce out of that top tier and really build some more balanced lineups and have more access to guys who are just underpriced because of the field.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want distance, most of the longer hitters are expensive, and then you can just kind of take your stabs on some launchers down near the bottom of the barrel. But I don't think that's the way I'm going to go.
You're just going to get sucked back into the balanced approach?
I think.
Okay. We'll talk more about that throughout the podcast for today. But first, with the NBA in full swing, it means the return of FanDuel's single-entry series presented by Roto-Grinders. The series consists of 6 straight weeks of single-entry NBA contests with $48,000 in total prizes up for grabs. Each week, FanDuel will feature a different type of single-entry contest. You can enter as many days as you'd like that week, and FanDuel will add your 4 highest point totals together to get your combined score. So if you haven't played yet this week, don't worry, you can still get in. Finish the week with the highest combined score to win a spot in the single-entry championship on March 25th, which is the anniversary of a win in NASCAR for Elliott Sadler, and compete for a shot at the $10,000 grand prize. Other top combined scores will win prizes as well, all on top of regular contest payouts. For more details, visit FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app today. eligibility restrictions apply. My brain is broken because I immediately fixate on a date that Elliott Sadler won a NASCAR race because he only won 3. So it's not hard to remember all of those dates. Let's take a look at some golfers who have done well at Riviera in the past. And I think that conversation should kind of start with Bubba Watson. Bubba Watson, generally at these events where they're super top heavy, will be more of a mid-range play. But he has distance. He has used that distance to his advantage at this course in the not terribly distant past. So he checks in at $11,200. What do you see with Bubba for this weekend?
The wins, basically. the other good finishes. I mean, he's alternated wins here over the past 6 years. So a win, then a 14th, win, withdrawal, win, 15th last year. So I know I was dismissive of math before, but mathematically that means that he's going to win again this week.
He's the San Francisco Giants of the PGA Tour at Riviera.
Yeah, I know baseball, so I get what you're going to.
Yeah.
I mean, I already bet Bubba this week, but at $11,200, he's really not. He's overpriced, but he's not priced to the point where it's you can't really play him, despite this steep field. And the thing that's really drawing me to Bubba outside of the awesome form at Riviera is the good recent form. He's gained 8.3 and 7.3 strokes tee to green over his past 2 measured events with elite approach numbers. Last year, he was struggling more, entering like the January, February swing, the waste management, and the Genesis. He wasn't really golfing well, but he finished 4th and 15th at those events. He can turn it around. And frankly, with Bubba Watson, he's one of the few golfers where I just don't really care about the stats so much. He's such a unique fit with the way that he shapes the ball, just being one of the very few left-handed golfers. Now, I will say that according to fansharesports.com, Bubba is way out ahead of the pack. It's early, so I'll just say he has 42 tags. Nobody else has more than 27 to start the week. I would imagine that continues to grow. Bubba could be very, very, very popular this week, so keep that in mind because this is a sport where things get a little volatile. So just just keep that in mind. And for context, last year nobody was above 26.5% owned in this field. Bubba was at 19%. He was like 6th on the list. So ownership's going to be kind of flat this week, so that helps. But Bubba's probably going to be top 3 in ownership.
Out of pure curiosity and no motivation behind this at all, where is Tony Finau in tags on Fanshare Sports?
He is.
Ooh, you have to scroll. Ha!
No. I was on a different tab. He is tied for 3rd.
Well, because my thought process was if Bubba's going to be chalk, I will use Tony Finau, who finished 2nd behind Bubba in 2018 and was also 15th last year, also has elite current form, and we'll talk about him later on. I think the best argument against Bubba is that there are other golfers right around him who have similar appeals and similarly good histories here. Patrick Cantlay, Xander Schauffele, Tony Finau, all of them fit that mold of being good off the tee, great approach players, and have actually done well at this course. They all finished tied for 15th last year, weirdly.
Don't write off Hideki.
Hideki did not finish 15th last year. Therefore, math says he can't win.
He finished 9th.
Yeah, but he didn't finish 15th. You're ignoring this. Tiger was also 15th. So, hey, there's that. But I think that if Bubba's, I usually, as you know, and as our listeners know, it takes a lot for me to fade the chalk. But when I have 3 awesome alternatives I can pivot to, I will happily pivot to whichever one of those I think will be the least owned. Yeah. And Bubba will not be the least owned guy in that group.
No, he won't be. And you're going to ask me a lot of like either ors this week. I already know it's going to be like, which of these 3 guys stands out. It's going to be.
We're going to talk about those 4 after we talk about Finau.
Well, I was just going to say my answer. I'll have an answer for this, but really when I'm building my lineups, it's going to be whoever I think is the least owned.
Okay. I think that's fair.
Because all these guys are so good and it's so close. It's just.
So those guys are the second tier, and I think they fit kind of like a stud plus balanced approach. The guy who doesn't fit that is Dustin Johnson, and he would be in like the top tier studs because he is 11.8. And with all the studs in this field, We get DJ at 14-1 odds, and he has the fourth highest salary of the week, which we don't usually get. So it's interesting, and I think it's also for a course where DJ's done well in the past. He is a former winner at Riviera, got that done in 2017. It was his sixth top 5 finish at this course. Got a pair of runner-ups in there as well. Now, DJ shot an opening round 74 in 2018 and a 73 in 2019, but he rebounded both times. He was 16th and 9th those 2 years, respectively. DJ played well enough last week, but he was one of the players, all of whom were in my player pool, who just imploded on Sunday. He finished 32nd, and I think that kind of downplays the fact they did look pretty good there. So you got a lot of great choices in this event. Does DJ do enough for you to stand out at 11-8?
Stand out? No. Does he do enough for me to want to play him? Yes.
Okay.
I will say that he is second in fanshare tags. Hey, man, I'm just letting you know what fanshare has to say early on in the week. I don't think Dustin Johnson. Again, what's really going to happen is, as I already mentioned, the ownership's going to be pretty flat.
Yeah.
And it's going to be avoiding maybe if someone creeps up. Like last year, for context, Justin Thomas was 26.5%. I mean, did well. It's not going to matter. But DJ was at like 24%. He scored about 50 to 60 fewer FanDuel points than Justin Thomas. So those small discrepancies, I think it's really going to just depend. Just trying to find any leverage you can, because it's such a narrow field. But so to answer your question, really, I like Dustin Johnson. I wouldn't put him in the tier of the top 3. I view him outside.
So you have him below Rahm.
Below Rahm, below JT, and below Rory for me.
Okay. I have him in that tier, although Rory is threatening to be a tier above, I would say. I think that's the best way to phrase that for me. But I think the way that I'm viewing popularity this week in ownership is, if I view them as all being in the same tier, then I will pivot to the guy who's going to be the least popular. If I don't view them as being in the same tier, then I am okay kind of riding with the guys that I like most. For the top 4, I think they're all in a same-ish tier. Again, Rory tried to creep away and get into his own, but he's like, they're like 1.5 tier and he's 1. I think that's the best way to phrase that. So if I get to read that Jon Rahm is the one who will slip through the cracks, I will invest in Jon Rahm, because I think that he deserves to be in that upper tier. Same thing goes with that second tier we were just talking about with like the Finau type guys. If someone there is going to creep through, like if Xander's going to go overlooked, sweet, I'll invest in Xander or Patrick Cantlay, because I think that those two are interesting. Given the early popularity on Bubba and Finau, I think that Cantlay and Xander are both worth monitoring, but I don't think there is a big enough drop-off between any of those top 4 guys for me to deviate and go with the guy I think will be the most popular. I think I am okay playing the ownership game there.
Yeah, like I said, that's gonna dictate a lot of what I do this weekend. I know I keep saying that the ownership's flat, so that kind of should mean that ownership doesn't matter as much. But if you can avoid someone at 25% and instead just pivot, let's say Dustin Johnson's 25%, Jon Rahm's 15%, and DJ just doesn't really do a whole lot, and Rahm does, performs at the high end of his baseline. I mean, those are the kinds of differences that are going to matter this week, because this field is so good. Yeah.
So I would be mindful of ownership this week. We're going to talk about our rankings straight up in the current form section for the top 4 and for the Finau group. We'll talk about that later on, disregarding ownership. But first, got to get some Luke List love on the podcast, because Brandon has mentioned the depth of this field is pretty fun. And that means like the lower end guys, I like someone at 74. You have Luke List here at 77. We have a couple other golfers right around 8,000 who I think are really enticing. What do you see with Luke List at $7,700?
Yeah, it's going to be tempting to go top heavy this week, which is a little risky in the sense that we're going to have to rely on golfers who are fairly long shots. Again, the invitational field, the smaller field, is going to help these guys make it through the cut. But if we have some guys who are cheap and have some upside, then That's very, very intriguing, and Luke List does fit that bill at $7,700. He's finished 20th, cut 26th, and 15th here over his 4 tries. He's gained strokes putting in only one of those. He can pick up strokes around the green, which is a specialty at this particular course because of the rough type Kikuya. So it's a little bit more bankable than normal. The irons haven't been great here, but he's picked up approach strokes in 3 of his past 5 events, which all came in 2020. He's lost at most 0.6, so he's been pretty solid, pretty steady with the iron play. And, for the price, List looks decent. Top 25 at $7,700 could go a long way if you pair him with the right studs. So Luke List was your first love, I think, when you started digging into golf. Are you tempted by him at all at Riviera?
I am tempted by this general tier of like super cheap golfers and just saying like, we'll see if they make the cut. The problem is I think that there are guys who fit it better than Luke List, like specifically Kevin Tway. Really stands out to me at $7,400. He is like Luke List, except with better approach play recently. And I value that. He's also $300 cheaper. Also has some course knowledge. He's missed 3 straight cuts here, so that's good. He's played it at least. Great. Cameron Tringale's down here. Sebastian Munoz is down here. I think that's kind of the issue I run into with List is that there are other guys where if I'm going to just say, F it, we're going deep, like there are guys who fit that a little bit better than Luke List. Now, they don't have the same course history as Luke List does, so I am missing out on that. And they don't have my heart as much as Luke List does long term. But I think that there are 3 guys I like more. And if he's 4th on this list, specifically down here, I'm probably not going to get there. What about for you?
Yeah, he does. I mean, he's not really going to fit my go-to build, but I can already guarantee that I'm going to build lineups where I have like 2 to 3 studs and a bunch of punt plays and hope that I hit on 3 guys who make it through the cut. Because again, it's a little easier to make the cut in a 120 golfer field. So I will be playing some golfers down here. List is definitely in the pool when I do that. But again, I don't think it's going to be my default build. I think I'm going to try to avoid that temptation and go a little bit more balanced and really maximize the lower prices on some of these elite golfers that we get this week.
I think that one way to play it is going with like one super cheap guy, and that allows you to be really balanced with the rest of your lineup. Like if you plug in Luke List, your average remaining salary per player is $10,460. And if you do want to go balanced, like basically you just pray that Luke List makes a cut, and then you can go with your balanced approach from there on out. If I use Luke List, it will be in order to get access to more studs. So that would not be the route that I would be taking, but that is a route you could take. Just hope you hit on that one super cheap guy and then go balance from there. Again, that's not the route I personally will be going, but that is a route you could, in theory, take if you wanted to go balance. That is a route you could take to get there.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting field because it is a smaller field, but it's like a deep field. That's a top-heavy field, but I think you can kind of do a lot of anything you want. And like you said, I mean, it makes sense if you do plug in one cheap golfer, you can really access a high floor or a high ceiling depending on the way that you build from there.
Yeah. Is Luke List your favorite guy? Super cheap? You don't have to expand too much, but is he your favorite down there?
I mean, can I include someone who's like 84?
No.
Then he might be.
Okay. It's Carlos Ortiz, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll be talking about him later on. We both like him. You got to the player sheet before I did, so you got him.
Yeah, I snuck that one in there.
Yeah. We both like him, though. And I'm talking about him on the FanDuel Hurry Up today, so at least we're getting some Carlos Ortiz talk out of both of us. Another guy who's done well at Riviera in the past is Kevin Na. And I'm looking for distance here. Kevin Na does not fit that mold, but he has still managed to put up some good finishes in the not terribly distant past. Specifically, Na had a pair of top 5 finishes in 2017 and 2018 Riviera. He was 4th in 2018. He was runner-up the following year. Then last year, Na finished 33rd. He had another top 5 finish back in 2011. He's been here 16 total times, so he clearly knows the course well. And he's also won on the tour pretty recently. It was this past fall. He was also 14th at Pebble Beach. So the form is not bad, and he's still relevant. Are you interested in Kevin Na at $9,600?
It's a good price. It's in that range where I think that if you're, again, just mathematically trying to optimize your cut odds, like your top 20 odds, it's really between that $96,000 and $11,000 range. Na won the Shriners, like you said, 14th at Pebble Beach. His approach play has been really good. I can't knock it. I don't think that he is necessarily someone I'm building around because the longer term form is not quite as good as some other golfers in this range. I don't have any real issues with Kevin Na, but I don't think he will be worth the expected ownership bump that he'll get because of the recent win and his performance here.
Yeah, I think that I'm in a pretty similar spot. And I think that, like, again, there's another golfer who fits like a similar mold who's right there in JB Holmes. Holmes actually won here last year. He has distance. He's also got good current form with 3 straight top 16 finishes. So I think it's another situation where if I'm going to be there, I don't think he'd be the first guy I'd turn to. And I don't know if I'll be in this range all that often. I can get there more often thanks to guys, like in the Luke List range. Like that will allow me to get up here more often. But you also have to think about it this way, where Kevin Na at $9,600 is $400 cheaper than Paul Casey. And I don't think the gap in talent is reflected in that number. And Colin Morikawa is 10-1. Also not a huge distance guy, but like I'd rather just get to them. So I think I'd rather pay down for some other golfers or pay up for guys like Paul Casey if I'm going to be around Kevin Na.
It's tough, and that's really what's drawing me to this particular like balanced build, because you can get Sungjae M at 99, Paul Casey at 10, Colin Morikawa 10-1, Bryson 10-2. I mean, that's just, it's really hard to pass that up, especially if you're building like a head-to-head, a cash game lineup. I know it feels awful not to have access to Rory or JT or Rahm or DJ, but I think that's a pretty like solid. That's a much more solid lineup than what you would normally get if you built in a regular field, just hovering around 10,000. You're getting guys like Jason Kokrak sometimes up at like 98. It's just
whoa.
I know.
Whoa.
I'm
Let's
just
not
really
get the Jason Kokrak drive-by here.
I'm just really tempted.
I think different subject. This is my least favorite tier, the high 9,000 until you get to Sungjae, down to like 94. I don't like the 95 to 98 range at all, personally. You gave me a very weird look. You may like that range. I don't.
I mean, I'm good with JB. I'm good with Matty Fitz, Answer, Sungjae. I mean, I guess you said up to Sungjae. So really you're saying like Cam Smith, Charles Howell, Kevin Na, and Brandon Grace.
Correct. I also am not on Matthew Fitzpatrick this week because he's not like a bomber. So I don't like that tier.
I mean, I can't blame you, but I guess we're kind of on the same page.
If there's one tier I dislike most in this field, it's definitely that tier, I would say, relative to where I'm usually at. Let's take a look at some current form golfers who have done well recently. This is where we're going to have the straight up rankings discussion as it pertains to that top tier and then that second tier. You'll start things off with the top tier. You're going to talk about Justin Thomas and his appeal. We'll rank those top 4. Actually, let's go top 6 because I'll toss Brooks and Tiger in there too. But then after that, we'll talk about the second tier. So what do you see with JT specifically and that top tier less specifically?
So Justin Thomas has a win, a missed cut, and a third place finish in his past 3 events, but the missed cut came in very windy conditions. And Justin Thomas is just a stud who I feel like is somehow underrated. It's not like people write off Justin Thomas, but it almost feels like he just doesn't get quite the love he deserves. He has the recent form to consider him near the top of the list. He's got the distance to excel at Riviera. And if you want to look at current form, JT has gained strokes tee to green in 96% of his past 24 rounds. Tied for second are Jon Rahm and Rory Mcilroy at 83%. But despite that elite tee to green performance, Thomas has gained strokes in only 71% of his rounds because he's been basically hit or miss with the putter. I think that could indicate a buy low opportunity for Thomas in this loaded field. He has form at Riviera that includes 5 straight years of action, 41st, 54th, 39th from 2015 through 2017, before finishing 9th and 2nd the past 2 years. He fits the course. He's in great form. He's trending up at Riviera specifically. So I don't know if you want me to kick off this discussion. Okay, I'm still gonna rank Rory number 1, and I'm gonna kind of do like a cop out and rank them all in order of their price because
Okay.
I put Rory number 1, JT number 2, Rahm number 3, and I said that I don't really consider Dustin Johnson in that particular tier necessarily. But then I would put DJ 4th. Oh, I guess Brooks is. I think I'd rather have Brooks than Tiger, maybe.
I would rather have Brooks than Tiger as well. But the only difference that we have is I have DJ above Rahm. But I don't have enough conviction in that to disregard ownership.
Right.
And it sounds like Rahm has the best potential maybe to go overlooked. Are you getting a similar vibe?
It's possible, which is absurd because Jon Rahm has been so good.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of excitement. Anytime Tiger's in a field, there's going to be a lot of extra entries in on FanDuel. And with a field like this, I think a lot of people are going to play. I think Rahm's probably the most likely of the top 6 to get overlooked.
Yeah.
Just based on like name value. Yeah. Again, not that people don't know Jon Rahm, but
do they know him as much as they know Tiger Woods and Brooks Koepka
and DJ and yeah.
Right. I think that if I'm ranking them straight up, I have Rory 1, JT 2, and I feel very firm about those two. I don't feel as firm about DJ over Rahm, but I feel okay about it. Brooks is honestly the biggest wild card because it's absurd that he is 20-1 and it's absurd that he is 11-5, but you also understand why, given the fact that he sometimes just does not care. So like, I get why he is where he is, but like, although I'm putting him lower on the list, I want to actively make sure I get exposure to him in case he decides to engage. Whereas I don't feel that same need with Tiger Woods. So I think that's the way I'm viewing it right now.
Yeah. Brooks is he's always going to be a wild card anytime it's not a major because we don't know what he's going to do. And I just find this very interesting. But on FanDuel Sportsbook, Brooks is plus 154 to beat Rory straight up, which that's wild to think about.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I think Brooks is going to be one of the best tournament plays of the week just because we don't know what he's going to do. We don't know what the form's going to be.
I don't think I need to be like aggressive with Brooks because there is a lot of bad potential, but like I want to make sure I have enough to benefit if he blows up is the way that I would phrase that. So let's look beneath Brooks Koepka. So 11-4 on down. That tier includes Patrick Cantlay. We're going to talk about this though through the lens of Tony Finau because I love Tony Finau, and because it's such a loaded field, we get guys as hot as Finau at 11-1, and we kind of have to ask if he's good enough to tempt us into glossing over the top end guys, and it sounds like you may be okay with that. We obviously know about Finau's issues late at the waist management, but we have to keep in perspective that he still finished second in that event. He has now 3 top 6 finishes in 4 events since January 1st. The other one, he was 14th. Finau gained 5.2 strokes in approach in Phoenix. He is up to 17th now in approach the past 50 rounds. That's according to Fantasy National. Also has the distance to compete here. So I think that if I am ranking this tier, which includes Patrick Cantlay through You want to do through Hideki? I think Hideki makes the most sense. I'm just not going to listen. Through Hideki.
So that's Cantlay, Xander, Bubba, Finau, Hideki.
Yes. I go Finau 1, Cantlay 2, Xander 3, and then Hideki 4, Bubba 5. My level of conviction in that is minimal, but I think Finau is 1 for me. What about you?
Finau's 5 for me.
Wow.
Pretty easily.
Wow.
I mean, we both love Tony.
Remember when you bet Tony Finau versus Byung-Hun An against me? How'd that go? How dare you doubt Tony Finau again?
Not good. But I put Xander number 1.
Fine.
I haven't really considered Cantlay that much because he's kind of in that. I weirdly feel like he's a bridge between these two tiers, and I don't really put him in either. But I should probably put him number 2, although for the price, I like Hideki. So I'm going to go Xander, Cantlay, Hideki, Bubba, Finau.
Do you want to do a little head-to-head again between Bubba and Finau?
Sure.
All right, so I have Finau, you have Bubba?
Yeah.
All right, cool. You were way too quick to agree to that, which really concerns me, but I'll take it.
I mean, Bubba's just like, he's been so good lately. And
so is Finau.
Has Tony Finau won 3 times here?
No, but he was second 2 years ago and 15th last year.
Yeah, I'll take Bubba over top 10 Tony.
Top 10 Tony. Finau's gonna win. Redemption. I'm
fine with it if he does. I like Tony Finau enough that I wouldn't even care.
Okay, so we talked about that tier. Sneakily, Adam Scott's kind of hanging out there at 10-8.
Yeah.
His stats are really good. He was 7th here last year. I don't think we need to have a big discussion around him, but I want to mention Adam Scott fits a stud plus balanced approach brilliantly. And I think he's kind of similar to Brooks, where I don't think I need to go crazy hard, but I want to make sure I have some of Adam Scott this weekend. Quick thoughts on Adam Scott for you before we move on.
Quick thoughts. Just I like him. The only red flag is he hasn't played since December. Late December is like 22nd or so, right around Christmas. But he did win the Australian PGA. I like Adam Scott, and I'll just try to end it there.
Okay, let's move on to a couple of cheaper guys in the 9,000 range, again, the worst range in this field. You're starting off with Abraham Answer. He is $9,800. Seems to fit your approach really well. I might not go there, but what do you see with Abe Answer?
3rd back in November at a WGC event, which is always a tough field. 8th at the Mayakoba, then in 2020. 38th at the Sony, but 2nd at the American Express. So it's pretty good current form if we can dig back into November. It's always hard around this time of the year, but that's a good list of finishes for anyone. Answer is $9,800. So not going to fit a lot of builds if you're going, stars and scrubs, but if you're going balance, definitely in the mix. He's played Riviera 2 straight years, 68th in 2018, 44th last year, but his current form much better leading into the event this year than it was for either of those two. So I don't really have any issues with Abe Answer. Sounds like he doesn't fit your build, but, I think, again, the go-to lineup could be right around just hovering that $10,000 range. So someone like Answer doesn't fit your build, but are you interested in Answer independently?
I don't know. I mean, I'm really going for distance, and that's not necessarily a strength of his. And I think it's just that's probably why I don't like this tier, is because it's not really a strength for anyone outside of JB Holmes, really. And it really sours me on that tier. I was just building a lineup and it put me in this tier, which made me really sad. So I may wind up being here more than I actually want to be. But it's just, I don't know. It's just, there's not enough there to really tempt me from a distance perspective. And I am putting a lot of emphasis on distance this week. So I don't see myself getting to Answer. If I'm going to decaf distance, I'd probably just go Matthew Fitzpatrick in this range over Answer. But I really don't want to disregard distance, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a valid way to go. I'm not saying Answer's a lock button play for me. He's just someone in this range who has good form, who I think fits the course maybe a little better just from an overall perspective. But again, I'm just really tempted by this tier, so it's gonna be telling what lineup build ends up winning out kind of in the majority of like tournaments.
Yeah, I might shuffle around the lineup I was working on just because I really don't want to be here. Really don't want to be here. One tier I like a bit more is the mid to low 9,000 range. And one guy who's in there is Max Homa. And we haven't talked about Homa on the podcast recently, but been building a pretty impressive run the past few weeks. He enters the Genesis with 3 straight top 15 finishes. He was 9th at the Farmers, 6th at the Waste Management. He was 14th at Pebble Beach. And he's now made 8 straight cuts. Homa has also made 14 of his past 15 cuts. The approach numbers haven't been good for a longer term, but they have picked up the past 3 events, and he's a good POA putter. He's only $9,300. I am still a bit wary of Homa due to his longer term stats, and there are some guys in this tier I do like, but he has my attention, is the way that I'd phrase that. What about for you?
I usually want to see a little bit more from the long-term stats before I buy in. And like you said, there are other golfers in this range who stand out to me, including Joaquin Niemann at 94. If we're just going to go for it, Cameron Champ at 92, Scotty Scheffler's 92, Corey Connors 91. So it's less to do with Homa himself and more to do with he'd probably be like 4th at best in this range for me. So probably won't play a whole lot of them this week.
Yeah, I think that like if I don't wind up getting there, it's not a huge loss. Just because again, like you said, there are other guys that like more in this tier. But if I've already gotten enough Joaquin Niemann and I've gotten enough Scotty Scheffler where like I'm okay differentiating, I could see myself going to Homa there. But he's not really a priority, is the way I would phrase it. And there are some other guys down here who are interesting. So in consideration, I think is where I'd wind up on Max Homa. Let's take a look at what the bookmakers are saying for this weekend. Rory Mcilroy, a pretty healthy favorite at FanDuel Sportsbook. He is plus 750, which is really short for this field. Then John Rahm and Justin Thomas are both 10-1. Dips down to Dustin Johnson at 14-1 with Tiger Woods at 16-1. Brooks Koepka, Bubba Watson, and Patrick Cantlay all 20-1, followed by Tony Finau and Xander Schauffele at 22-1. Hideki Matsuyama, 27, and then Adam Scott rounds up the top group at 29-1. Already talked about like our favorite studs for this weekend, so I want to get your final thoughts on roster construction. You have one tournament lineup. How are you building it?
One tournament lineup, I think it probably makes the most sense not to assume we know which of the studs runs away with it or wins. And I think that for that reason, I want to maximize my like top 20 equity, which I think is going to be more balanced, kind of max out my lineups around 11-3, 11-4. Really try to take advantage of the tier 2 golfers who are priced like below 11,000. So your Finals, your Hidekis, your Xanders, getting more of them than usual is possible this week, and I think that's the way to go.
Yeah. You will probably go that way. I going to go the direct opposite way. I think if I have one tournament lineup, I might try to get 3 studs in and just go totally wild. Because like if I'm doing one lineup, if 3 guys miss the cut, it's no different than if one guy misses the cut. I'm probably not going to cash if one guy misses anyway.
But if you punt with 3 golfers, you have to get all 3 of them to make the cut. It's very possible that 2 of them make it, but you have to hit the right combo. That's always the big drawback, because I'm tempted by that because the cut odds are easier this week, but just logistically, you have to hit on 3 longer shots to make the cut if you're going to do that.
But the longer shots, like, aren't super long. Like, I'm not using 3 guys who are 300-1.
Yeah.
It's one dude who is 300-1 with a couple of low 9,000 guys. That gets you 3 studs.
Yes.
That's a build I like a lot. And if I can get Kevin Tway through basically in my one lineup, I will feel really good. And that lineup will probably be in a good spot. I think that's a very aggressive approach, and it
Yes.
doesn't fit the general mindset we've had since the new cut rules went into place. But I think here, given the strength of the field and given how many legit studs there are, I am okay skewing more that direction than we have recently. So
I
if I
can't
have one
knock it.
tournament lineup, I think I'm punting with one dude,
Yeah.
specifically probably Kevin Tway, and then trying to jam in 3 studs, which I can do because I'm literally staring at it.
That
So we'll
sounds
see.
Yeah, that sounds more like what I would typically do. So I commend you for it.
I don't usually do it because I'm usually a wimp. But hey, we'll have some fun here. Whose odds have moved since things opened yesterday?
I have Bubba from 22 to 21 on FanDuel Sportsbook, Tony Finau 27 to 22, Hideki 29 to 27, JB Holmes and Kevin Na from 70 to 65, Joaquin Niemann from 90 to 80, and then our boy Carlos Ortiz 190 to 120.
Interesting. Tony Finau moving down 27 to 22. I know that Bubba moved 2. We're going to disregard that. Doesn't matter. Blah, blah, blah. But hey, it's interesting.
It is. It is.
It is.
I'll give you that.
Neiman moving is intriguing to me. We both like Ortiz, so I think all of this movement makes sense, and I think I am good with that. Which lower salary golfers have odds to stand out to you?
There's not a lot, and that's kind of the point of like maximizing your win equity is probably going to be best spent with a more balanced approach. But below $9,500, the best odds are Cam Smith and Cameron Champ at 80 to 1. I don't mind Champ just because of the distance. And then at 90 to 1, there's Charles Howell, Joaquin Newman, who we both like, Ryan Moore, Max Homa, Scotty Scheffler, and Alex Noren. I like Scheffler as well, but if you're going to just try to max or match like win odds to salary and try to find value that way, you're going to be a little bit hard pressed this week.
Yeah, just because there are a lot of guys, like the presence of all the studs at the top, they're going to gobble up a lot of win equity, which means it's harder to find guys who have lower salaries, who have legitimate win odds from a betting perspective. So it kind of forces, I think, like a resetting of your mind. Like, oh, I can't consider a guy who's 150 to 1. Like, they're 150 to 1 in this field, but like that doesn't mean they're a bad DFS play. I think that's the way that I would phrase it. Weather for this weekend, nothing. I'm jealous. Sounds great. We got like 15 inches of snow last week, so a little jelly of that for sure. But with that, let's dive into our player picks for the Genesis Invitational. Brandon, starting off with you in the upper tier, who stands out to you there?
Yeah, so I think I made my thoughts pretty clear on the fact that I like the top 4 golfers in terms of salary, but I'm probably going to try to play the odds here and go with a little bit more of a balanced approach. So I'm going to name Xander Schauffele first at $11,300. I mean, he's someone I can't quit anyway, but he does fit the course like this. He's 20th in driving distance. He's 8th in strokes gained off the tee, 24th in strokes gained approach, 32nd in strokes gained around the green. Just such a good all-around golfer. One of the best in the world, doesn't get phased by tough fields, and he's finished top 15 in each of his 2 starts here. He was 9th in 2018, 15th last year. Xander's just kind of lurking, and for $900 cheaper than Rory, it's still pretty close, but it's going to be more of a balanced approach for me this week.
Yeah, and the key, which you mentioned, is that he was 15th last year, which means he's eligible to win this year. Those are the rules. We don't make them. That's just how it goes. My first high-priced guy, as mentioned, is Rory Mcilroy. I want to go through the thought process for why I view him as being in like half a tier above everyone else. I'm going to keep on using him until it stops working, because Rory enters this weekend with 4 straight top 4 finishes. If we look at him since he missed the cut at the Open, Rory has 9 top 10s in 11 events with 7 top 5s and 2 wins. The stats are there too. He's 4th in distance, 10th in approach, 9th around the green the past 50 rounds per Fantasy National. So he is my top golfer in a loaded field, and I am okay getting to him just because I do think that he is like a half or like a quarter of a tier higher than the rest of the group. Any final thoughts for you on Rory, Brandon?
Love him. Just going to be popular, but probably not as popular as we would normally get Rory because the field is so deep.
All righty, let's move on to your second stud. Who do you got there?
Similar to what I did with Xander, I'm going to go in this kind of cheaper upper range and go with Hideki Matsuyama at $11,000. He has finished 23rd, 4th, 11th, cut in 9th in his past 5 starts at Riviera. He's long enough off the tee for me. He's 46th there. He can contend. He's 11th in approach, 7th in strokes gained around the green over the past 50 rounds on, according to FantasyNational.com. The blemish really with Hideki is always the putting, but fits that balanced build, and that's, again, I think where I'm probably going to wind up.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of appeal to Hideki, and again, I do rank him above Bubba, but I would put him beneath guys like Finau, like Xander, and Patrick Cantlay, because you know why, Brandon? He's good at golf. Little curveball for that. But it's hard to pass over like Brooks Koepka, like mentally, because he's 11-5 and Cantlay is 11-4, but Cantlay's really good too, and the current form is obviously solid, but he's been solid at this course recently too. He was in that key 15th place last year. He was 4th in 2018, never shot over par either year. He ranks 16th in the field in distance the past 50 rounds. He is 8th in approach. He's 10th around the green. POA is his worst surface. He's just okay overall there, but he goes a long way towards being a bit less top heavy, like, not getting in Rory and DJ or something like that. He's 11-4. He's kind of at the top end of that second tier from a salary perspective. As Brandon said, he's kind of a floater who goes between the two tiers, but I like that a lot for Cantlay at 11-4. He's beneath Finau for me, but I think both those guys are really appealing down there. Let's move down to the middle tier. Brandon, who do you have standing out there?
Well, because I'm going with a more balanced approach, I feel okay recommending Paul Casey at $10,000, right at the edge of the mid-range. But, he ejected at Pebble Beach on Sunday, finished with an 81. We'll have to shake that off. But, I mean, he's been so good from, like, a longer-term perspective. 9th in strokes gained approach over the past 50 rounds. 45th in driving distance, so he's longer than you probably think. For someone like Paul Casey. And he's made the cut 5 straight years at Riviera. So Casey for $10,000 is just a prime example of having some really good golfers at a discount because of the field. And that's really what I'm trying to take advantage of this week.
And if you go kind of punty with one of your golfers, Casey is very obtainable. So I will have Paul Casey in my player pool this week as well. And in the 10,000 range, he's my favorite. I think Sungjae is too, but Paul Casey and Morikawa guys, I very much would be okay if I wound up on for this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's tempting me. That range, that right around $10,000. It's really calling to me, Jim.
Not calling to me as much, but it's a lot better than the mid 9,000 range. So let's talk about someone who is beneath that. That's our boy Joaquin Niemann. He's still. We talk about Niemann being a bad putter, and he's gotten better, but mostly those gains have been on bent grass. Hasn't been on POA, but he's had a smaller sample on POA since the putting became less wretched. So I'll take that risk at 94, even though the risk of bad Niemann coming back is definitely real. Niemann's 23rd in distance. He's 18th in approach the past 50 rounds, and plenty of those rounds have come against pretty good competition. Niemann has also at least seen these greens before. He was here last year. He finished 44th, so not a huge outing, but it came before he really picked things up during the spring. So at $9,400, I think Niemann is my favorite guy in this tier, and it's not really that close. What are your thoughts on Joaquin Niemann?
I like him a lot. I would have recommended him if you didn't. I mean, he's got some form here, such a good ball striker, and he's long. He's 22nd in distance over the past 50 rounds. I mean, you can't really nitpick if you're going to get something like that at $9,400. Now, he's not safe, and that's kind of what I'm trying to avoid this week, but I will be using Joaquin Niemann for sure.
All righty, let's move down to your second mid-tier guy. Who else do you have here?
I have Corey Connors, $9,100, so pretty extreme on the mid-price range for me. Connors leads the field in greens and regulation gained, one of the best total drivers on the PGA Tour. Really struggles with the short game, and I am valuing that this week, even around the green play. But of all of the first-timers at Riviera, Connors has the second best cut odds behind Matthew Fitzpatrick, who's $600 more expensive. So I'm a little bit wary about Connors, but I'm also just not in love with this kind of low to mid-thousand range to begin with. So that's another reason why I'm just kind of trying to elevate that floor.
Do you like this range less than you like the upper 9,000 range?
Well, what do you mean by upper?
Beneath Sung Jae, 98 on down.
No.
So you like
But,
this range more than that range?
yes.
Okay.
But I like Sung Jae and I mean, I'm not even against Sergio. I like Paul Casey, Colin Morikawa.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna play some Bryson. Once he figures out that distance, I mean, I like this like right around $10,000 range. So
Okay with not going to Bryson personally,
Why?
but I don't want to. That's my reasoning.
Do you not like Bryson?
You know,
Bryson, I like Bryson.
he's a weird dude.
Yeah, and I can relate.
Okay, fair. All right, fair enough. My second mid-price guy is Scotty Scheffler. He's kind of in a similar bucket to Neiman, where there is some serious putting risk. So I don't really want to have both of them in the same lineup all that often because, like, the odds one of them misses the cut is pretty high.
That's what I'm saying about like you plug in like 3 cheap guys. It's just a perfect example.
2.
It's just it's an example.
Yeah. But Scheffler does bring a lot to the table. He is 22nd in distance. Past 50 rounds, he's 20th in approach. That helped him get a 3rd place finish at the American Express, which was less than a month ago. And you can still get this dude for $9,200. He earned actually an invite to the Genesis back when he was still in college in 2018. So he's seen this course. He didn't embarrass himself. He shot a 73 and a 76. And again, he was still in college at that time. So I'll roll the dice with Scheffler at 92. I just would like to avoid having him and Neiman specifically in the same lineup, just because I think the odds that one of them misses the cut is very high because they're both risky in the short game. So try not to pair them together, but like both of them individually. What do you think about Scheffler?
Yeah, he's fine. He's going to be he's probably second for me in this range. If I'm just kind of down here. Well, I'd put Connors, I think, above Scheffler.
Okay.
Feels a little safer, but
sure.
Can't knock Scotty Scheffler. And I'm not going to overlook Cameron Champ. If you're going to embrace the risk, might as well consider Cam Champ.
Fair enough. Let's move down to the value range. Who stands out to you here?
So I have 2 golfers down here who are kind of good enough to make me reconsider the whole balanced lineup, but one's Jason Kokrak for just $8,900. His cut odds are very good for the price, and that's tempting. He's also 10th in strokes gained off the tee, 31st in approach, and 10th in distance over the past 50 rounds. So that's like the mini map for me. I need those 3 stats, and he's got all of them. He's played here 8 straight years, 3 top 25 finishes over the past 4 years. So we both love Jason Kokrak. I didn't mean to slander him, but
yeah,
the difference between Jason Kokrak at $9,800 and Jason Kokrak at $8,900, even in this field, it's very massive. Yeah. And he really stands out to me below 9,000.
If I'm going to talk about Joaquin Neiman and Scotty Scheffler, I have to be okay with the imperfections of Jason Kokrak, and I am. $8,900, it accounts for the shortcomings. So I will be in on Kokrak. Another guy I want to mention down here is Erik Van Roy, and we haven't talked about him yet because he's been mostly playing on the Euro Tour recently, and he's been just all right there. But he's also only $8,800 this week. He initially made noise at the Open, had a 20th place finish there. Actually, I guess the U.S. Open for a bit. But since then, he has 4 top 10s in 15 events, including a win. Outside of the 3 times he's missed the cut in those 15 events, he's been the top 40 in each event. His approach play for the full Euro Tour last season was not very good, so I don't think he is a massive value. But he's got some upside for $8,800, and I am intrigued by that. Brandon, I don't think I like Erik Van Roy as much as I like Jason Kokrak, but I do enjoy him. What do you think about Van Royen?
I like him. He's risky. The recent form's not anything that I'm super jazzed about. It's more like what we kind of saw from him last year. But for the price, if you're willing to roll the dice on these guys, I mean, one thing you can do is build lineups where you have like one slot below 9,000 and just kind of duplicate that and sub in like your top 5 guys and hope that, you know, your 5 more expensive golfers hit, and then you just click on one of these. So I might do some of that too. I'm gonna play way too many lineups this week. I could already feel it. So
I'm gonna do that, except with dudes who are below 8,000.
Yeah, but yeah, EVR is someone who I was looking into pretty closely. I kind of took a little bit of a step back though because don't love the reason for him.
And again, the Euro Tour stats don't catch your eye, is the way that I'd phrase it for sure. So I don't think he's a massive value. I like your guy Carlos Ortiz more. So talk us through him at $8,400.
Yeah, 29th in distance, 4th in POA putting over a 100-round sample. His sample is 51 rounds, so that's still pretty sizable. Played here 3 of the past 5 years, 20th, 26th, and 9th. The 9th came last year. He could be very popular, and one Carlos Ortiz is enough to still build a balanced lineup or go a little bit more top-heavy. But Ortiz is someone who's really drawing my attention. And again, Kokrak and Ortiz open up a lot. So even though I want to go balanced, they're pretty enticing. So I'm going to build lineups of both kinds. I know that, but again, I want to stress my default. I think the optimal way to go is a little bit more balanced.
If you want to go really degaffy, you put in Carlos Ortiz and Kevin Tway, and then you can have a lot of fun.
Son of Bob Tway.
Son of Bob. So my second mid-price or low-price guy is Kevin Tway, because we're going distance. That's the main angle here. The distance is the big thing for Tway. He's 13th in distance, but it's not like he's terrible elsewhere. He's 46th in the approach. He's 36th around the green, 56th in POA putting. And Tway has actually gained strokes in approach in 7 straight measured events. And he's also made 8 of his past 9 cuts. So yeah, he is a distance angle, but it's not like he's totally erratic. So I like Kevin Tway a lot at 74. I also do like Cameron Tringali at 77 and Sebastian Munoz at 8,000. There are 3 golfers down here who I like quite a bit. It's why I'm probably not going to get to Luke List, but it also is a big part of why I am okay going very top heavy. And if you go Ortiz and Tway in one lineup, oh baby, you are living the dream from there on out. So I'm going to do that. Actually, I think it's pretty fun.
I can't knock it. I think that, I mean, I have him as more likely to make the cut than to miss the cut. The issue is just the top end upside for someone like Kevin Tway with not necessarily a complete game in a field this tough.
No, the top end upside is winning by 10 strokes.
Okay, that must be where we differ with Kevin Tway.
I don't know what you're not seeing. Your simulations must suck.
Yeah. So look, he's underpriced. I can say that, and he's probably one. I mean, he's one of the better plays down here for sure. But again, it's just the reason to play the studs is to get access to their upside. And if you're gonna kind of have somebody who maxes out at like 30th, then I don't know if that's enough to win.
Nah, maxes out at third.
Maxes out at 30th in like
30
strokes
ahead of the field. Maxes out at 30 strokes ahead of the field. It's just Kevin Tway, man. It's how it goes.
He did win a non-zero number of my simulations. It's just a matter of how likely that is.
I'm assuming that you simmed it 5 times then. That's
what
I
wanted 3.
Yeah, of course. I don't know what happened to the other 2, but that's fine. But in actuality, I know there's risk. But if I use 2 cheap golfers and they both make the cut, I like the rest of my lineup a lot. So I know it's riskier than we've been advocating for recently, but I think in this specific field, I want to get in as many of the top end guys as I can. Kevin Tway gets me access to that. So just make the cut, baby. That's all I ask. Win picks here for the Genesis Invitational. We already have our head-to-head bet, Tony Finau versus Bubba Watson. We will go one golfer who is 50 to 1 or longer. We'll keep it kind of short just because it's a weird field. And then 1, let's go literally anybody you want. And you won the bobble hat for like the 15th straight time last week, so you get to pick first. And then who do you want for this week?
I will go with... I'm gonna go with Sung J.M. Because I do not like...
I was looking at the rest of the guys at 50 to 1 or longer, and I was like, why do you say Sung Jae? I mean, I guess I'll just take Rory then.
Yeah, okay.
Who do you want for your anybody pick?
I'll take Justin Thomas then.
So who in the heck am I supposed to take for...
That's why I just took Sung Jae and ran with it.
So the only guys I like, I guess I could go JB Holmes. He's the defending champ. He's been okay recently. He's got distance.
Uh-oh. Here we go.
I don't know. I'm not like a huge JB Holmes guy, so I'm not really itching to make this pick. I could just go Kevin Tway. Instead of going 50 to 1, I will go with
like
Kevin Tway. Yeah, at 320. Where is he? Is he even 320? My goodness, where is he? I can't find him on my sheet. Yeah, he's 320. No, I'll go JB Holmes. It's really boring. I'm gonna go JB Holmes and Rory.
It felt like
I was about to make a bad decision, and I didn't.
Were you gonna take Tway?
No, I was gonna take like Neiman.
Oh, well, yeah. I felt weird taking Sung Jae, but when I just saw who else was down there, I was like, I'll give you Rory and take anyone else.
Right. Who'd you pick at the other end?
JT.
Okay, so Rory and JB versus JT and Sung Jae, and we also have the bet of Bubba versus Finau. Finau's got to win back-to-back for me. Put the team on your back, man. Let's do it.
You're running out of opportunities to catch up in the bobble hat, though.
It's February. Shush. What do you mean? I'm down 5, right?
You got roughly 29 events, depending on...
That means I can still win by 24. Get out of here with this nonsense.
Maybe 27, looks like.
Then I can still win by 22. Math, I think. I don't know. Whatever. Math is tough. That is all that we have for today. Any final thoughts for you, Brandon, now that we've talked through this entire field?
Yeah, it can be tempting to try to get as many studs as you can, but you're going to have to hit on guys with some actual upside. So, I mean, I'm not going to talk you out of Kevin Tway, but I think the best way to go is balanced. And in the bobble hat, I will go much more balanced than it sounds like Jim's going to go.
Oh, in the bobble hat, that's a head-to-head. That's way different. Talking tournaments, man. Also, I know you're not going to talk me out of Kevin Tway because I'm just not going to listen to you.
I got to try.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
Why? It's not gonna work.
If you play Kevin Tway, I mean, you're going to get access to the winner, right?
Well, yeah, automatically. If I use Kevin Tway and Rory McIlroy, I'll have the winner and Rory McIlroy. What else could you want? So it's going to be great. We're going to have very different approaches this week, which I think is exciting. We don't usually have that, so should be a fun event. Don't forget, once again, we got a loaded week this week here on the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, 2 NASCAR podcasts, and an XFL podcast coming up on Thursday. Make sure you are subscribed to the Number Fire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcast. Brandon, if people have questions for you on Twitter, where can they find you there?
I'm at Gadula13, GDULA13.
And I am at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald for running the video side of things here today. Thank you, Cal, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck with your PGA DFS lineups for the Genesis Invitational. And we'll talk to you again plenty of times later this week. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by Number Fire.